Hi everyone, welcome to the Teacher's Point of View. Pretty excited actually because we've got a unique individual here today. I mean, we've got Ellie Blane, who's not related to David Blane by any means, but she's a and currently kind of doing a PGCE in primary, just completed a first placement. I mean, Ellie, welcome. I mean, like, can you just kind of introduce yourself and like what got you into teaching and how it's going so far?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to being on this today. As you just said, I'm doing my PGCE currently. I'm due to qualify, please God, in July with a QTS and get my first teaching job this September as an NQT. I've been in education for quite a few years now. I'd say about 6 or so years. I started off when I was a lot younger, so I'm going to say about 2014. I was at school and, you know, like a lot of young people, they don't really know what direction they want to head in, where they want to go. And I did my cash level 3 early educators course when I was in sixth form. And I kind of just went into it, not really knowing much about it. Just went in at the deep end, I guess you could say, and I ended up absolutely loving it, and it gave me the opportunity to do my first placements in schools, which, you know, obviously I was a lot younger then, so I hadn't really worked before, so I didn't really know what it was like to be in a work environment. And it was such a good experience for me, but I loved working with children. I loved just learning from all these teachers, and I actually have so many amazing connections and relationships that I still have today from those schools. So I'm so grateful for that. And yeah, I started with my cash, as I said, got my qualifications with my cash level 3, which enabled me to do teaching assistant work, nursery nurse work, and things like that. And then from there, I kind of just followed the path of going to uni. I went to the University of Birmingham and I studied education for 3 years, and I liked it, but I didn't love the course as much as I did when I was doing my level 3 early educator. I just felt like it wasn't that practical. I didn't get a lot of placement work out of it, which I feel like I was missing. But you know, again, really great. It helped me to, you know, build on my qualifications of education. I learned a lot from it. And then I left uni, and by then I was a bit sort of tired of just doing studying. I feel like I just did it for so many years, and it was very constant that when I left uni, I guess you could say I was a bit lost. I didn't really know what direction I wanted to head into. And over that summer, I was kind of, I mean, I'm the sort of person that puts pressure on myself to, you know, get a job and just have something settled, because I hate the thought of just not doing anything. So obviously left uni, and that September I was just a bit like, oh no, I don't know what to do. Teaching was always at the back of my mind, but as I said, I was just not in the mindset to do studying that September. So I actually found a job, which obviously we spoke about, education recruitment. It sort of came along, and I thought, you know what, it's utilising my degree. Why not go for it? I really wanted an office job just to test it out. I wanted to earn a bit of money, do something different, and it linked to my degree, which I obviously have a lot of background information on. I did that for 6 months, absolutely hated it. It just wasn't for me. I mean, look, I have no regrets, and I learned so much from being there, but it just, I don't know, I was obviously hiring a lot of teachers and support staff, and for me, I was just like, I want to be doing that. I want to be working in schools. So I left in February, before obviously COVID came about in the UK, which, you know, was the best time without me realizing, because I didn't even know COVID was a thing. And then obviously left, and I was again a bit lost, didn't really know what my purpose was, didn't really know what I wanted to do. And what was really funny is a few days after I left, I was out for lunch just locally with my family. And we were talking about my next steps, and we were talking about doing a PGCE in September. My mum said to me, definitely do it. You know, you've got these qualifications, build on it. I feel like now's your time to get back into it. You loved working in schools where you were doing your cash level 3. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. And then hopefully I can find maybe a TA job in the school until then, and then do my PGCE. And as we were talking about that, walked in the teacher that actually was at my first placement when I was doing my cash, and we still speak. So we were kind of like, if that's not a sign, I don't know what is. And she came in, had a chat with me, asked me if I was still working recruitment. I said, no, I actually left literally this week, but I'm looking for a job now. We're talking about doing my PGCE. And she said, oh, I've got a job for you as a teaching assistant. I'll get you in on Monday. And I was just like, oh my God, this is kind of like the universe telling me this is what I need to do. So I got that job, but then obviously COVID came about, so I wasn't there for that long. I was going backwards and forwards for a few weeks when schools reopened, and here I am now. And then I started my PGCE in September, and I absolutely love it. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. So it's been a bit of a journey, but I've got here now. And I feel like, I was definitely ready in September to do this. Not last September, but, I was definitely ready a year later to just get back into teaching.
Yeah, sometimes you just need a break, don't you? I mean,
yeah, 100%.
Just to kind of point out, she didn't work for me and everyone. I mean, she literally worked for another recruitment agency. I mean, she would have probably had a different opinion if she worked with me, but I mean...
Probably. I'm not going to say the name of the company, but, it was a corporate company. And like I said, I have no regrets. I learned a lot from being there, but it just kind of like what we said when we spoke the other day, with a lot of these bigger corporate recruitment companies, they don't really care necessarily about the quality of the teachers. It was more just like we were saying, numbers, KPIs, targets, and it just felt a bit impersonal to me. And I just wasn't, I just felt like it wasn't for me. And also for me anyway, sitting at a desk all day, it doesn't inspire me. And that's what I love about teaching. I like getting up, I like interacting with the children, interacting with people, being proactive. So yeah, I'm glad that I did it, but it wasn't a long-term thing.
You would have gained a lot of confidence from it anyway, I think, in some respects.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? I think in some respects, when you leave school, you don't naturally, some people naturally do, but you don't actually get taught certain skills at school to actually help you kind of it doesn't really help you bridge the gap between school.
Definitely.
So that
100%
disguise. But I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Because I remember what you said about me, about your kind of placement in earlier this week, and you said it's taken 30 kids in a classroom. It took you a term to build relationships and get to know these kids on a one-to-one basis. And it's incredible because what Colin Goffin says, he's a head teacher, and he goes, well, every single year you should be actually spending the first period of time actually getting to know your kid and then teaching. And it's quite funny because obviously in your PGC they're not really telling you that. So I mean, how has your experience been in that first term?
So I mean, obviously now it's inevitable, schools are shut, so I'm not at school currently, but I was lucky to have 5 weeks of my first placement, and I absolutely loved it. I mean, I knew I was going to like it anyway, because if you love teaching, you love teaching. But, kind of like you just said, it took me a while to build up relationships with the children. I mean, not overly long, but, once you do, you do grow a bond with them. And then it's really difficult because, now school's being shut, I would have been there now, and I would have constantly built more of a relationship with them. But I've been doing online teaching, and it has been difficult because it's just not the same over a camera. You're not building that same relationship. It's just not very personal. So I do feel like I've almost, not the bond's gone, but, it's kind of, when I do eventually, if I do eventually go back, it's going to take time to rebuild that relationship with the children again, which is challenging. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. I really did. And it was, a great 5 weeks, and I learned so much. But obviously I'm not there at the moment, and that's challenging for me as a student because, like I said, I've kind of, lost a bit of that relationship with the children because it's not very personal online. I'm not seeing them every day, not really seeing their development as such. And, for me anyway, my training has been affected because although I'm doing online teaching, I'm not really getting anything out of it. I believe as a teacher, no one can teach you how to teach. You have to go in there and just do it, and you're not going to learn that online. But obviously that's just the way of the world right now. We can't control it. So there's nothing we can do. I've just got to roll with it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, it's incredibly difficult. I mean, my hat goes off to you for just attempting to do a PGC during COVID. I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of graduates last year that went, no, we'll just wait a year. Let's just let COVID run its course,
Yeah.
But I mean, you were brave enough to do it. So my hat goes off to you, But
well,
go on.
No, I was just going to say, the funny thing is, I actually, obviously, when I was applying, I was like, oh, COVID will be over by then. Thank God I actually didn't choose to do it the year before, because I knew people that missed out on their whole last placement. And I remember in September, we were saying to each other, oh, it's fine. We'll get all our placements. And now, it's come back again a year later, and I've been affected by it as well. I just didn't expect to be. But again, it's no one's fault. What can we do?
Yeah, let's not like point fingers, but definitely it's Gavin Williamson's fault. But we won't go there. But look, you've obviously kind of been on the other side of the table. Now you're on this side of the table within a short period of time. Like what you learned in school compared to like what you're having to teach, and kind of the philosophies you're learning and kind of learning about teaching as a whole. What do you think kind of needs to be revamped, and where do you think kind of like the school maybe would have let you down for the real world, and what do you feel like you currently still not got in the system to kind of prepare these children?
Well, I definitely feel, like when you're teaching, just excluding online teaching, normally in the classroom, pre-corona, teachers are provided, even when I was at school on my placement for 5 weeks, there's constant training, which is great. There's always trainings after school, meetings where everyone's learning off each other and training and learning what needs to be done for maybe the following week and how we can, implement things into the classroom. But I don't feel like that's given for remote online learning. I do feel like teachers are kind of burdened with quickly adapting lesson content, which is designed to be delivered in a physical setting, to like an online or remote format. And, it's very, very difficult for teachers because we're not really prepared for that. And I do feel like, virtual coaching, facilitating remote trainings and reinforcing what, should have been done face to face needs to be done so children get the best out of their online learning. Because obviously the school's trying so hard, and I'm sure all other schools are, but there's only so much we can do online, and it's not interactive, it's not personal. And I do feel like teachers, they need to be given this online, coaching. It needs to be part of the plan that government say, we'll give you, resources, anything you need to implement remote online learning, because it's a huge transition. From the physical setting, and there's so much that you just can't do online, especially in early years. I guess it's a bit different if you're in maybe key stage 2 or above, but for me, being in reception at that age, they just want to play and they just want to be creative and be in the classroom and doing things and with their peers and the staff to learn to communicate and all of that sort of stuff, but they can't do that online. And I do think teachers need to be provided with the right training, the right resources to provide all of that as much as they can, because I don't feel like they're giving that at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about actually kind of bridging the gap between school and the workplace, right? Obviously, you've obviously kind of gone through your experiences after leaving school, where you got on university, not 100% sure where you wanted to go. What do you think like the biggest thing was when you left school? Like, where do you think like you might have not have been ready for the workplace in terms of what do you think the school should have done to prepare you more for the workplace?
So many things. Again, more training for myself, I guess, more coaching. I do feel like that's severely lacking, and that's something I'm passionate about. That I do think, and I said this to you on the phone the other day, that as teachers, I feel like people underestimate that, because they're a teacher, they can kind of do it all. But I feel like as a teacher, you're constantly learning anyway. And my teacher in my setting says that to me all the time. She says, I learn from other people still, even if I've been teaching for 10 years. And I feel like coaching and appropriate training is so important. And, especially now that I'm doing my PGCE year and it's been massively affected by COVID, I feel like I need that myself, but it's just not being provided enough. And it is a problem because, I do worry for my, come September, could I have been better than I would have been if I would have had the full experience of being in school? But I don't know, because I'm not really being given, that effective coaching and training.
Yeah, of course. What about like kind of at school though? Like, when not at your current placement, but like when you were like sort of
secondary school.
Yeah. So like when you kind of left school, did like were you ready for the workplace?
Definitely not. I think, again, as I said earlier, when you leave school, look, some people, if you want to be a lawyer, doctor, accountant, or whatever that is, it's kind of just ingrained in you and you're grown up and you think, I want to leave school, I want to go and do this. But for the majority of people, you don't know what you want to do at 16. I didn't have a clue. Like, I kind of just followed a path. I did my cash, which is the best thing I've ever done, because I think if I didn't do that, then I wouldn't have known what to do at uni.
Yeah.
Like that kind of led me onto my education degree because it linked. And I think I was really lucky and grateful to have that. But if I would have, you know, just done like random A levels, I wouldn't have known what to go into. And I think, you know, I just kind of followed the path of going to uni because everyone went to uni and it's kind of the accepted thing to do now in society these days, I guess. But I definitely wasn't ready for work at all. And I don't think schools prepare you for that. And I think especially nowadays, like I said, schools, I mean, I remember at 16, all they did was go on to us about applications. Even if you don't want to go to uni, apply, go to uni, go to uni. It's all about going to uni and getting a degree. But, you know, they don't really prepare you for alternative things like going out to work or apprenticeships or things like that. Maybe more so now, but I know for me in my school when I was there, they didn't prepare me. They kind of just said, go to uni. And I'm glad I've done it because if I didn't do that degree, I wouldn't be doing my teaching.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think they don't really prepare you, you know, for post school, I guess you could say.
Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, maybe that was my school. I don't know. I can't speak for other schools, but
I mean, I think it's pretty systemic, like throughout. Like, I mean, there's some schools that are doing great things, I'm sure, and I've spoken to a few that are, which is great. But it's not. I mean, you've got something. You've got a little bit about you, you know, like you've got a bit of energy. You're enthusiastic. I mean, so ultimately, I think naturally you were always going to be okay if you were kind of pointing in the right direction. But it's very lucky you found the kind of you done the level 3 cash, right? I mean, because if you
100%.
Do you know what I mean? But if it, like, this is what I'm saying. So a school should like be finding your passion and helping you excel in it, right? And in some respect, like you didn't get that until you got to sixth form. So how have you gone through 16 years of your life not having a passion for something? You know, I mean, this is where the education system is letting our children down.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. As I said, I think it's a very personal thing. I think it depends on everybody as a person, your personality. Like I said, some people just grow up knowing what they want to do and some people don't. But I agree. And I think as a teacher, like I want to, you know, change that. I want to not just have children come into my classroom every day and learn a core subject and go home, because I feel like that's what school is. It's just, you know, people always say nowadays, they don't really teach you the things you need to know in school. They teach you like obviously the core subjects and things that, you know, you need to get from one level to another, but they don't really teach you about real life. Obviously in somewhere like reception, it's a bit more difficult to do that. But, you know, I think when in my placement currently, for my PGCE, my teacher, she's very young and enthusiastic. And she's actually, I have to say, a really great example of somebody who really incorporates, you know, outside workplaces into their learning. So she'll always talk about things like, oh, I mean, pre-COVID, she would actually bring people in, but she'd talk about people like that help us, like doctors or nurses or, I don't know, policemen and people in the outside world and jobs and things like that to get people, you know, the children thinking about it. But I do feel, you know, I completely agree. I think it's very core subject focused and that definitely needs to change. Because for example, you know, maths was never my speciality at school. I hated maths. I always struggled with it. But I had to get a C at my maths GCSE to go on to where I wanted to go on to, but it doesn't really affect me anymore. And I feel like, you know, so many of these subjects, they just become so nothingy, if that's kind of a word to you in the future, but they just make it, but it's so important. It's like the be all and end all of your life. But it's really not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know?
I mean, don't get me wrong. You need to have basic numeracy skills. You need to be able to read, and you need to know how the world works, right? But I mean, the world. I mean, look, every part of that is quite. It's quite inspirational in its own way. Like maths, it's about the world, the way the world works. Like English is about the imagination and explore and kind of going with literature and going in imagination. And then you've obviously science, which is about exploration, right? And it's very important that you can kind of get that enthusiasm and inspire kids to learn about it. But the problem is, it's taught in a regimented way that, I mean, teachers, like really good teachers, will find ways to adapt, but I mean, you're still very limited in the way that you can do that, you know?
It's really hard to do that. You know, and
for children that aren't good at a subject, I mean, Jesus Christ, if you're not necessarily good at maths and all the teacher is doing is drilling down maths at you, all you're going to do is resent maths. You know,
well, that's literally what happened to me.
You know what I mean? But if you're really good at English and you're kind of like your passion is in English, and it should like they should be inspiring you how to kind of excel in English. And once you're successful in that, it's easier to replicate into other subjects. Do you know what I mean? But
and
yeah.
that's why, like, you do look back. It's so funny because as a teacher, I think I see that more, or training to be a teacher, that, you know, you do look back on your school life and you do remember teachers more so that made things difficult for you than the ones who didn't. So I'll always remember these maths teachers that I had that just made my life hell and literally made me hate maths more and more. And I think I would hate to be remembered as one of those teachers.
Yeah.
You know, like, that kind of ruined a subject for you. And I agree, it's about, you know, adapting it and making it, you know, more interesting and more enjoyable for the children. That's why I actually really like early years, because it's a very, you know, sort of broad curriculum where, you know, all the teachers, they follow a curriculum, but they can sort of adapt it and make it creative in their own way to make children engage and interested in the subject. And I think that's what we need to do. You know, we can't ever change the core subjects, you know, are important, and we need to get those grades in those core subjects, but there is a way of going about it and making it as interesting and as engaging as possible. And as educators, we have to do that by, you know, like I said, making sure we have the right resources, making sure that, you know, we don't know when COVID's going to go. So if it means that we're online for a much longer period of time, you know, provide teachers with that coaching to facilitate really good remote lessons for the children to keep them as engaged as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if you know a gentleman called Gavin McCormack. If you don't, absolutely follow him on LinkedIn, right? I mean,
right.
he's a principal of a Montessori school, it's a primary school in Australia.
Right.
Actually from Leeds himself, but he's kind of traveled the world. And he's basically kind of like built schools in like Nepal, and he's awesome, this guy, right? And and basically he came on a podcast last season, and he basically walked me through a story about these two little girls that he was going to teach maths to one day. And he walked into the class, and he went, come on, girls, we've got to teach you maths today. And then the two girls went to him, look, we're really enjoying this history. Like, we're really like loving actually learning about history. And he was so happy to hear that, because he's like, these girls are so passionate that they want to learn. And that is sometimes, as teachers,
that's so nice.
We take that away, don't we? I mean, you're kind of saying, no, you're inspired to learn about this, but it doesn't matter because it's not as important as maths or English or science. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got phonics and do assessments at the age of like 4 or 5 years old. I mean, Jesus Christ, you're 4 years old. Like, go play, have some fun. Do you know what I mean?
I completely agree. I personally just don't agree on all, like, you know, the testing and the assessments and like the progress checks that needs to be done in year one. Like, it's just so much pressure.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not going to lie, I think I kind of escaped, you know, the harder part of education when I left school. But like, looking at education now, I do feel like it's become just so much more pressurized, like especially GCSEs and A. Like, I don't know, I feel like, you know, for children growing up now, going into their GCSEs in secondary school, like, I do worry for them, because I think it's a lot harder now and there's so much more pressure. It's so competitive, and it's just become like completely pressurized.
I mean, yeah, and like, where's the fun? I mean, like, school, I mean, listen, how can you go through 16 to 18 years of your life and not enjoy yourself? I mean, how can you not like leave school being inspired to learn, or like find your niche, or find your passion for something? I mean, what is the point of school if you're not going to do that? You know, I mean,
I agree.
Do you think it's fit for purpose at the moment?
I think in some ways, yes. I think it is fit for purpose in the sense that, you know, talking about the core subjects, I do think it's important. And I think, you know, it's important that children do learn things in a way they need to learn things, because, you know, they need it for their, you know, like I said, I think exams, like, I don't really believe in them, but I think, you know, you need things to move to the next level. Like, I needed my cash to do my degree. Do you know what I mean? So I think in that sense, yes, it's fit for purpose. But then I think, like what you're saying, there's a lot of ways where it's not, because I feel like, you know, schools should be implementing other things like workshops for children, you know, days where they're talking about career days and things like that, just to get them thinking about the outside world and other things that, you know, beyond school and outside of all of that. Because I feel like school, sometimes it can be a bubble where you go in and, you know, you just have your lessons for the day and it's all about the lessons, and then you go home.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like that is quite like a segregated like bubble. And I feel like a lot of children, because of that, aren't really getting other things out of it. So I feel like, schools can have weeks where they implement, have a week of completely off core subject timetable. Let's have workshops. Let's, talk about careers and things like that and get them, inspired and motivated, past school. But I didn't really have that at school. I mean, I had the odd week, but it didn't really inspire me, to be honest. But then again, I think that's down to the teachers, so I think it is fit for purpose, but then it's not.
For the system though, because I think, look, ultimately, I mean, I don't know if you know a lady called Alison Creel. Sorry to keep bringing up names, but she's been this head teacher of a primary school. I mean, I had her on the podcast earlier this week, and she basically changed the whole curriculum. I mean, she didn't change the whole curriculum, but what she did was like she basically said, we're going to stop focusing on the core subjects as the only form of kind of like learning. But what she started doing was taking them outside more. She got all of them travel. I mean, kids travel for free, but she got all the teachers like travel cards. And what they did was spend like traveling around London one day so they can look and go to museums.
Yeah,
so
that's interesting.
What they can aspire to. They had like rabbis come in. They've had like sort of different religious like kind of like gurus and whatever they could. Sorry, I mean that's quite rude, but right, and they came in. It made them culturally aware. They had like architectures that came in. I mean, they had a very high population of young Jamaican, I think it was Caribbean black children, and they had they were from some of the most deprived areas of Hackney. I think they were in the bottom 1% when she took the school over, and then. In 7 years, well, within 3 years, I mean, she was there for 7 years, but within 3 years, by completely changing the curriculum, when I say changing the curriculum in the way that it was taught, they actually found that they raised attainment by not focusing on the core subjects as much, but actually giving kids something to strive towards. And
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I know. So, I mean, the thing is, there's loads of schools around the world that are doing that. And I think it's slowly starting to happen in the UK, but it's got to be on a national level. I mean, it's got to be rolled out everywhere,
I think COVID is a big impact, though, because it makes it so much more difficult. Like, you can't really go anywhere. And like, even, being in placement, although I learned so much over the 5 weeks, it was so, I've worked in schools before pre-COVID, and it was like a completely different ball game. Like, there's so much you just can and can't do. There's so many restrictions, social distancing. Like I said, my teacher focuses a lot on talking about people that help us and people like outside of school. And usually she would want people to come in and talk to the children or parents, but it just couldn't happen because of COVID. And that's a shame as well. And I think I do feel really, really bad for the children at the moment, especially at that age, going through this, because, they're just not benefiting online and they're not getting socialization they need. Yeah. And it's really going to impact them. And it really upsets me, because they're going to look back and think, oh my God, I had like a year or more in school where I wasn't even really socializing with my friends, and it was online once a week. And it's just, again, no one's fault, but just, it's such a shame, because that's amazing that, she really incorporated doing different things, children going out and seeing different things and different people. But obviously COVID is such a big barrier to that at the moment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, make sure you watch that podcast, because I mean, that's just like, but I mean, it's true. You're right, but it's so sad to think, right? I mean, what we think of a good quality education is that lost learning. I mean, like they've got an opportunity to actually like learn things in a more productive way in terms of cooking or doing things with family, playing board games, collaborating, coming up with ideas, being imaginative, like drawing, like colouring, like. Do you know what I mean? I mean, there's so much that they can actually do that we don't perceive to be as valuable. Do you know what I mean? But actually, in the 21st century, like the big companies want people that are innovative, that are creative, that are going to challenge ideas, that are going to get a bit dirty, going to get stuck in. Do you know what I mean? Those are like the kids are kids. I mean, we're almost like worried about them being kids, and we want them to grow up so quickly. But I mean, their minds haven't been developed. I mean, what we're putting them through exams. Do you know what I mean?
100%. But yeah, again, I think, I agree. Like, there's so many times where we'll be planning for like free flow play at placement, obviously because in reception and early years, like they're learning through play. And, we're always wanting to incorporate really fun things for them to do, like cooking, but they just can't do that because of COVID. Like, they can't even use Play-Doh. And I do feel like such a sense of their childhood's been like stripped away at school because of it. Like, I loved playing with Play-Doh and all of that sort of stuff at school. I used to always do cooking at school, and we can't do it. But then also what I've realised, a lot of the parents, they also don't really want to do that with their children at home because they don't have the time to do it, you know, and they've got to teach the children all the phonics and the maths and everything. So it's really hard for children to be getting that balance right now.
Yeah, for
really,
sure.
really hard.
I mean, just to kind of add to that, I know what you're saying, and I know like reception in year one, they should be out doing all of that sort of stuff. But I think we got to bear in mind, I think they should be doing that stuff until they're 7, 8 years old. I mean, like what we're basically saying, every year, barring every year outside of COVID, I mean, we're pretty much putting these kids in these kind of restrictions anyway between between the age of 4 and 7 in some respect, and it's. I mean, we're trying to get these kids to grow up too quick. And I mean, again, back to Alison Krill, I mean, she took them out. She got people in. Like the ones that were really good at Lego, she'd get architects in and spend the day with them. I mean, the ones that were really good at maths, like she'd get like specific like mathematicians in to kind of work with them. I mean, it was very like catered to the children. And I think
hands-on, I
mean, what we try to do is very, very generic throughout the nation. And like just
definitely.
I mean, what kind of teacher do you want to be?
I just want to be a teacher that, like I said, you know, you do remember your teachers at school. And I want to be remembered as like, Miss Blane, that teacher, loved her. She really brought something, you know, special to the table. Like I walked away from her lessons feeling inspired, feeling motivated. Like that's just the teacher I want to be. Like I want to go in and do my job, you know, and make a difference to children and feel like they've left school that day and they've learned something. Like that is always my aim. Even now as a training teacher, like when I know that I've taught a child something and they've gone home and they've taken it away, that's the best feeling in the world. It's so rewarding. I know I've taught them something and I know they've learned something new that they'll take away with them. So that's always my aim. I really just, as long as I'm doing that every day, then I couldn't really ask for much more. But I do just want to, you know, just be different, be inspiring, you know, just have fun with the children. Like I think there's such a balance though with, you know, being their friends but also having like a good relationship with them. So like I don't believe as a teacher you're like friends with your, you know, the students in your class. Obviously there's having a fine line, so like laying your boundaries, which I would always, you know, want to do in the future, but also knowing that if they need to speak to me, you know, I'm approachable and they can come and speak to me and we can have a laugh, you know. So that's really important. Like I want to be just remembered as like a teacher that brought positivity to the classroom always, and they took something from my lessons, and that's really all I could ask for, to be honest.
For sure. I mean, I think sometimes the big problem is education is kind of seen as this destination, not the journey, and I think that's what we've got to try and incorporate. And like kids should be leaving school thinking, you know what, I can't wait to come back tomorrow because it was so much fun. I want to learn more. So I mean, if they're going back and actually knowing information, I'd rather them not do that if they're not going to be excited about coming back the next day. You know, so I think it's really like, I mean, it's important that children want to like learn and you inspire them to want to learn and follow their passion. So because that is more relevant to the real world than just passing a phonics exam at the age of 6, you know?
Definitely. I'm not about that. I mean, I never even liked exams myself at school really or anything like that. And I don't think exams ever define you. You know, a piece of paper just doesn't. And I believe that, especially even when I did recruitment, like there's so much more to a piece of paper than when you actually speak to somebody and see somebody. And, you know, obviously it would always be my job to make sure that they're learning what they need to learn. But kind of like the point you said earlier about a lot of children at that age, because I'm aiming to teach in year 1, they're not ready to sit down in year 1 and not have play. And I can see that even from the children in my class or my placement. There's so many children where I do think in September, I mean, some will be, but there's other children who just aren't going to be. Like they're younger in the class anyway, they're August babies. So really, they could do with another year of reception, especially with COVID, missing out on so much of it. So I think it is important going into year 1. Yes, it changes. And yes, you know, it's more sit down and formal. But again, just incorporating as much inspiring teaching into those formal lessons, and that's all you can do. And if you're aiming to do that and you are making a difference to the children, making them excited to learn and excited to come back to school every day, then you can't really ask for much more, you know.
I agree. I mean, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, like, is there anything you kind of want to get off your chest about how your PGCE's gone this year, or anything in particular?
Look, I think it's definitely been a weird time. Like I said, didn't expect it to happen for my year of the PGC with all the COVID stuff. I kind of thought, oh, I've missed that, but I haven't. look, it's not been easy. And I think, look, for any student at the moment, even if you're not teacher training, it's had a big impact on students, uni students, postgraduate students, GCSE, A levels. It's had a huge impact. And, you know, we need to adapt and overcome these challenges. But as a teacher training student, we also still need to, you know, make sure that children are achieving their potential. And it has had an impact. Like I've had a week, you know, like this week or last week where I have felt a bit like, oh, online teaching is just a bit of a drag. I don't feel that passionate about it. And I do worry and think, is that taking my passion away from teaching? But then I've got to remember it's not really real life. Like, it's not reality that you're teaching a child through a screen. It's just not. Yeah. You know, that's not what education is. And it has been challenging, I have to say. But I think, you know, as I said, teachers, teacher training students, they have to just be equipped appropriately with the correct resources, you know, facilitating, you know, the appropriate coaching. And kind of like what we said on the phone the other day, teachers do, you know, go through a lot of burnout in their early years of teaching, which I feel like people don't really realise. And I think especially now more than ever, and now that I'm training during a global pandemic, it's important that, you know, like teachers like have people that they need to speak to, like specialized counselling unit to support teacher well-being and things like that, because I feel like that's not recognised enough. You know, teachers' mental health and well-being, because there's so much pressure upon teachers, especially at the moment, and so much responsibility that they need. But it's been challenging, but at the same time, I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. I'm so passionate about teaching, and it kind of makes me more passionate to, you know, inspire children even more, because they're also going through it. They're in the global pandemic while they're trying to learn, and I want them to just get the most out of it that they can do. So, and I know in September, being a teacher, you know, it's going to affect me and it's going to affect them, because they would have missed out on quite a lot of learning prior to being in year one, because obviously COVID and being on and offline and all of that sort of stuff. So I know that's going to have an impact. But like I said, I just, you know, if you're passionate about it and you're on it and you want to inspire the children, then you can get through it and it will be fine eventually. But it's just, you know, like having that balance and between the well-being for yourself, but also making sure you're just constantly inspiring the children.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, it sounds like you got your head in the right place, right? But I think just to kind of reiterate what you're saying, I mean, these kids are going to, in some respects, be behind. I mean, I was looking at statistics, and it was something based on, it's taken us 100 years to try to reduce this gap between the advantage and the disadvantage, and COVID has taken us back, literally. So it's going to take us another 50 to 100 years to try to catch up again. However, I mean, I do genuinely feel we're in this place now. We can't wait another 50 to 100 years to reduce this gap. We need to break down this barrier and actually figure out a way that we're actually going to do better by these kids. And actually, what we'll find is, if we focus on those emotional intelligence aspects and actually like the softer skills and the presentation skills and whatever, and help them find their passion and their niche, like everything else will come, you know? I mean, I didn't necessarily think I'd done amazing at school. I mean, I wasn't the smartest kid in the world.
Neither was I, though. I was not academic at all. But it's not about that.
No, I agree. I mean, I've met so many people with a first class honours that have got nothing about. Do you know what I mean? So a piece of paper doesn't necessarily say that you're brilliant you're going to be brilliant at this job, because like some people might just not have any personality. So what would you want?
I completely agree. Like, it's all very well, you know, you've got A stars and everything, first class, went to Cambridge, but like, if you don't have a personality, like, you're not going to get far. Yeah. You know, like, not, you know, I'm not saying to anyone out there that, you know, has all these grades, and I'm not saying a lot of people do, but, you know, it doesn't, like you said, it just doesn't define you. Like, I was an academic at school. You know, I struggled, like I said, in maths. Like, I was very lost at points of what I wanted to do. I didn't really know what my purpose was, but, you know, like, I love what I do, and that's all that matters. If you love what you do and you're passionate, and, you know, it takes people time. Like, it took me time to find what I wanted to do, but I know it takes people years. It can take people 10, 15 years, but as long as you love it, then that's all that matters. Like I said, that piece of paper just doesn't define you.
Well, but you know, you talk about kind of it takes years to find what you love doing. I mean, this is where schools need to be like helping you find what you love doing. You know, I mean, they should be recognizing what your talents are and helping you excel in that, and helping you really gain a passion for it and inspire you to continue to want to learn it. You know, and I mean, it's taken you 16 years to like something you're passionate about. I mean, that is crazy.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I know. but yeah, that's kind of like, it kind of links back to what you were saying about how COVID's like really, widen that gap again. I'm actually doing like one of my main essays. I'm talking about social inequalities and how like, teachers need to sort of bridge that gap and all of that sort of stuff. And, how obviously COVID's had a big impact on that, but we have to have good relationships with the students, like the children, to build, good conversation, rich curriculum, making it relevant to the children all the time, not focusing too much on grouping by ability, for example, creating activities that aren't, sort of based on the idea of their ability, but, getting the children to be inspired and learn together, getting rid of that gap as much as we can, and just like having lessons that reflect really good conversation between the students and the teachers, and just ensuring like an equal learning. But obviously COVID has had a huge impact on that, and now that it's happened, we have to, even if it is online, amend that, and by doing that and providing that really sort of rich curriculum and not just focusing too much on the core curriculum, we can get children to find their passions early on, but that's why us as teachers need to do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, and in some respects, the burden shouldn't fall on you, but in some respects, you've chosen to go into education, not for money, it's to make a difference to children, and those are the children that need it.
Definitely not, yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, it's the most like animated job, you could be having the crappiest day, the crappiest week, but they don't care. Like, you have to still get up there and pretend to be somebody you're not, like it's so face on and so just active that they're kind of waiting for you to speak all the time. And like, you just have to be the best version of yourself that you can be, even if you're having a crap day. And that's the thing, people, that's why I know a lot of teachers say, oh, we don't get paid enough, which I kind of feel like they don't, but you're not doing it for that. You're doing it because even if you are having a crappy day, you want to do it and you want to make a difference. Because I would hate to think that even if I was having a really crappy day, I went in and I got nothing out of the children, they came home feeling really uninspired, that would be on me, regardless.
Absolutely.
So you just can't, you've got to love it. You can't be a teacher and hate what you're doing, because it shows so much in your job. It's not like when I was in recruitment, I hated it, but I was sitting behind a desk every day, so no one knew. You don't have to love it. I mean, look, I always believe that you have to love what you do, because then it doesn't really feel like work. But I would like drag myself into work, like absolutely drag myself, because I hated it so much by the end. But I could kind of get away with it. But if I was dragging myself into school every day, I mean, everyone would notice it, and it would reflect on me as a teacher and reflect on their learning.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a teacher and you're not thinking about like going into school and actually making a difference to these kids every single day and waiting for those light bulb moments that are so addictive, so I've heard anyway. I mean, what, you should not be a teacher. I mean, if that is not your goal, I mean, in some respects, I've spoken to teachers and they've been having a shitty morning. Oh, sorry. I mean, I want to swear that. But a rubbish morning, and I'll probably cut that out. But you're meant to be having a rubbish morning, and then you go in and you actually teach these kids how they have this light bulb moment, and you come out actually more inspired. I mean, the kids just inspire you just as much as you inspire them.
Yeah, I learn from the children all the time. That's the thing with teaching. You're constantly learning, not just from the staff around you, but from the children around you. Yeah. Like, it's a constant, like, bouncing off one another, constantly learning things. That's what I love about it so much. Like, I feel like as a teacher, you actually learn when you become a teacher.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of like what people say with driving. Like, when you learn to drive, like, you learn to pass your test, but once you've actually passed, I feel like you kind of learn to drive by just teaching yourself and getting on the road independently. It's kind of the same sort of concept. Because when you're a teacher, yes, you have to train to get there, but once you're there, you're learning every single day, about yourself and about your style of teaching. You're learning from the children, from other people. Like, you're always learning the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, keep doing what you're doing, Ellie. I mean, your heart's in the right place, so just keep
Thank you.
I mean, we'll leave it there, but I mean, well done for coming on. Thanks for coming on, Rara.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really good to chat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, TJ.
Hopefully we can help you get the right role.
Definitely.
I mean, I'm really joking, but yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, everyone. Thanks for watching as usual, and see you in the next.
Thank you.